Coaches, what's going on? It's Coach Ian Tatum here, back with the Tatum Clinic Series episode. And today I have a good friend of mine, Stephen Smith. Before I bring Coach on, I just want to go ahead and make sure everybody make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube and rate and review us on Spotify. By the time this is airing, guys, we've had so many Clinic Series videos out. We're just rocking and rolling. Really do appreciate everybody. But I just want to go ahead and shout out to Coaching Share, who's our title sponsor of the channel. They have every type of resource you'd want in all one spot on their website, trying to just support coaches, small-time coaches trying to make some money from the resources. Go and check them out, Coaches Share. And then First Down Playbook, all of our diagrams we do on the channel online are through First Down Playbook, and they are very gracious to let me use their platform. So make sure you go and check them out. And then Dome Hatwear, where I'm wearing their Block Somebody football company, and y'all see me wearing all types of hats every single episode. So make sure you go ahead and check them out and grab you a hat. Without further ado, bring on my guy, Stephen Smith. What's going on, Coach?
Coach Tatum, what's up, baby?
Not much, man. Just living the life, getting through this cold, man.
Hey, it's just as cold here in the boot as it is anyplace else in the South right now. So,
no doubt. Well, Coach, you're not a stranger to the channel. You've been on other videos before. You've helped us out in some spots on live streams, stuff like that as well. But let's go ahead and let's break down exactly who are you? Where did you grow up? Obviously, you said from the boot, so shout out to Louisiana. But let's just learn a little bit more about you and then your coaching journey and where you are now.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Metairie, Louisiana. If you don't know geographically where Metairie is, we're that little tiny spot between New Orleans and Canberra. It's the largest unincorporated area in the state of Louisiana. Technically, it's a business district. So I grew up there, went to high school, came up through school there. When I graduated, I went to college here in the area, Delgado Community College. Shout out to Joe Sherman, who just entered the State Hall of Fame this past year, who's my head baseball coach there. And you'll hear a couple of me throw out a couple of different sports, and that's a theme right now. And my background is a little bit different than most coaches. I spent a quarter century of my life on the sideline, but in a different operational capacity. So I was an equipment manager first. I was an equipment manager. I was a video guy. I've also worked in media relations and at the professional level. I attended McNeese State University. I'm actually going into my last undergrad semester this spring. So I'll have a degree and finally be able to get into a classroom and get on, a little bit more permanence in some places. So if there was a pro sports team here in New Orleans between 1992 and the year 2000, I worked for it. So I spent 2 years working on AAA baseball with the Zephyrs, who were here, and we were with the Brewers at the time. 2 years in pro soccer, 2 years in professional hockey with the New Orleans Brass in the East Coast League. And we were the AA affiliate of Montreal and Edmonton at that point. Then briefly, I had one season with the Saints with my boy Jason Trosclair, who was most recently with the Jaguars, in working in game ops. And then I kind of started my journey, bouncing around the collegiate ranks as an equipment guy. I was at Norwich University. Shout out to the cadets, the nation's first private military institution. I was up there in Northfield, Vermont, working in ice hockey, and I transitioned into going into football full time, from that point. So I went to the University of Virginia, worked for Rich Abity, who's ironically is our Riddell rep, and went to my rival high school 10 years before me. I went from UVA to back and forth to the Arena League. So I had the fortunate pleasure of working for two Hall of Fame head coaches, in Milwaukee under Rick Frazier, who's not with us anymore, in 2000. And then the following season in Tampa Bay with Tim Markham, another Hall of Famer who's unfortunately not with us anymore, in 2001. And that's kind of like, where I started cutting my teeth a little bit and trying to gain a greater understanding of the game. I had made mention at some point, I think it was probably last week, Braden Fedorenko, who is a former LSU Tiger and a defensive lineman for the Chargers. He shared a Mike McDaniel drawing of a play, and I kind of gave my background and a little bit, having worked for Tim and gaining a greater understanding of the game of football from one of the greatest to ever do it in that version of the game. And just a quick story. So Tim actually helped create the offense that Arena Football uses. It's a derivative of the run and shoot that Mouse Davis used. And literally, Tim and Daryl sat down together at a table at a restaurant in Texas and pulled out napkins, and they started drawing, which is kind of like how we all do when we're trying to discover stuff at a clinic or a convention or something like that. And so I kind of, messed around. I got a triple-double, as they say. I bounced between I was at Nicholls State University working for Charlie Stubbs, and that's kind of like where I got an affinity for the spread a little bit more. Steve Axman came in the back half of the 2014 season while I was there. He brought some of his knowledge. Coach Axe is a great offensive mind himself. He's written a couple of books just like Coach Stubbs has while he was at Tulsa and the University of Alabama. And Coach Axe was Troy Aikman's quarterback coach the year he won the Heisman at UCLA. And he was Bob Toledo's offensive coordinator as well in that time span. So learning, a little bit more from Coach Axe about quarterback play there. Guy I'm coaching here with now, I'm at Riverdale High School in Jefferson, Louisiana. We're a 5A school. We're in Select Division I, so we're in the largest select division in the highest classification in the state of Louisiana. Our defensive line coach, our offensive line coach now, and co-offensive coordinator, Derek Francis, who grew up across the street from me, he brought me in 2015 as the assistant D-line coach. And it just kind of evolved for me from there. So Cherokee Streetman, who at that time was our offensive line coach and offensive coordinator. Street was on the offensive side of the ball and pretty much by himself because everybody else, including our current head coach, Mark Longo, we're on the defensive side of the ball with our head coach. And so I jumped on the offensive side and simultaneously coached quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers and tight ends when Street took the O-line. And I can distinctly remember sitting on top of the press box at Newman in Uptown New Orleans in week 3 of that season, of the 2015 season. And he's asking me, I got the cans on, I'm looking down, and I'm like, yeah, I don't understand any of this. I don't understand any of this stuff. And it just goes to prove it's like, you can be around the game of football and you think you know football, and until you start coaching in it, you don't have a greater understanding of it, And so I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've learned from some great people. I've done, how we all have, like going back and doing the research and trying to figure things out. Is basically how I learned how to coach in a 4-2-5 defense. In my second season of Riverdale in 2016, I picked up the special teams coordinator job, which is the role I'm in now. I'm coordinating special teams and coaching tight ends, and I'm also our video coordinator. And that's kind of been like a trend at every place I've been. I was at Darlington High School in Darlington, South Carolina. At that point, we were 4A, they're 3A now. Coaching under Raymond Jennings, and made me his special teams coordinator for 2 seasons there. And I really kind of got into it so Derek gave me my start at the high school level, but I got to really give credit to my guy, Chris McEwen. Chris McEwen is an Arena Football veteran as a coach. He was a walk-on at the University of Akron, as he's a native Ohioan, now a native Texan because he's been in Texas for so darn long. Max now the principal at Panhandle High School in Amarillo, Texas, where his stepdaughter is like first team All-State in basketball. She's really good. And his stepson is a collegiate golfer as well. So I worked for Mac in the IFL in 2011. I was his equipment manager and video coordinator and pretty much like his right hand when it came to football operations. Mostly because my roommate dropped the ball, so I started picking it up and run with it. It led to a conversation in September of 2011 where he became the head coach of a new team in the Professional Indoor Football League in Knoxville, Tennessee, the Knoxville Nighthawks. And Mac's like, Steve, I want you to be my defensive coordinator. And I said, are you crazy? Like, you realize that this was my first season ever coaching football? He's like, yeah, but you've been around arena football for a long time. You'll understand it. And I'm like, sure, okay, why not? Pick up a challenge. He hired Tommy Johnson, who incidentally was a national champion defensive back at the University of Alabama under Gene Stallings in '93. He has a few more rings than I do, a little bit more experience, So I deferred that position to Tommy and took the special teams coordinator role on. Made some mistakes like we all do, learned from them, and now here we are. I'm back at Riverdale going into season 2, 2024. I was at Haynes Academy for Advanced Studies, which is basically like a high school for smart people. It's the high school equivalent of coaching at MIT, dude. That's pretty much like how it is when you have a whole bunch of undersized offensive linemen. So I coached offensive line there. We went 9-0. We blocked for a 2,200-yard rusher in Lachlan Clavery, who was first team All-State and offensive MVP for our district. To Riverdale this past season where we went 8-2. Coached our current tight end, our number 1 tight end, Carlos Williams. He's 16 years old or 15 years old, and he's 6'3". And you can't coach height and speed.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he's 15 and he's 6'3".
Yeah.
And he's only going to get better, especially in the offense that we're moving into this upcoming season. And there's nothing but great things for Carlos. We've had a number of coaches on campus to talk to him about him. Talk to Coach Longo about him and our other players already. I mean, I'm just, Ian, I tell you what, man, I don't know what star I fell under. I don't know if I see 11:11 on the clock and I just close my eyes and make a wish like Ted Lasso. But, I'm just real fortunate, man. I'm just really fortunate. I'm blessed to have had the opportunities I've had in my career. So I'm going to shut up now.
No, I love it, man. You obviously, anybody that's watching can see the passion you have, man. Let me ask you a question that I love asking each guest. Outside of Jimmy's and Joe's, because some people have them, some people don't. So outside of the dudes, what are the intangible things that you think help teams win in the margins when they're maybe equal talent or less talent, but they end up winning anyway? What are some of those intangible things you can't measure?
2 things. One, and it's kind of a weighty question because here's how I'm going to answer it. The weight room. Okay. So actually, you know what? It just starts and stops right there. Here's why. Every team that I've either coached or been a part of in one form or another in any sport at any level relies solely on the work that you put in the weight room. Mm-hmm. Okay. The reason for that is because if you think about it, the challenges that we face as individuals in the weight room, from the freshman from the rising freshman who is an 8th grader who in his life has never picked up that 45-pound bar and is struggling to just squat properly or shoot the elbows when we do hang cleans, and do all the little things. And then to be able to push themselves and see their growth in that, right? But for them to not understand, to not see it until their sophomore, junior year, and then as the work starts to build and the muscle starts to build, they start to realize it. But what we don't really understand and realize is that as coaches sometimes is that the calluses that you build on your hands is equal to the calluses that you build in your brain. And so the challenges that you face in the weight room, overcoming adversity by increasing weight or fixing 4 more reps, all of that mental buildup, all those mental calluses build up to where you start to see the small successes. And as an athlete, as athletes go, you want to win. And so you start to win in the weight room. And the way you do that is by taking the work ethic that you put and pushing that bar and getting to that point at the end of the 5th set when your muscles are fatiguing, the arms are shaking, the legs are shaking. What do? You have to push past that, right? And so if we push past that in the weight room Monday through Thursday, let's say like right now in the spring, August, September, October, November, December for some of us in some states, those small victories, those gains start to pick up. And then you start to realize that, okay, if I could do this in the weight room, give me a playbook. I'll learn it and then I'll mess up, but then I'll get better and I'll get better and I'll get better. And that's the thing. That's the thing that wins you in the margin. So we can sit here and talk about X's and O's all day and go, hey, look, I mean, as a special teams guy, I think it's the most important phase of the game because it sets everything up. Like it sets the table offensively, defensively. It sets all that up. But the thing that sets up all three phases is what that work that you put in the weight room. You know, the strength and conditioning part of it is absolutely huge. And then the gains, like I said, the gains that you make, the wins that you accrue by doing that over time, right? The wins that we accrue by doing that over time actually helps us when we get into those tough times on Friday night. It's 4th and short. You're down you're down 3. It's under 2 minutes left to go. You know, what do I need to do as an offensive lineman? I need to get that last push. Well, remember that last rep that you took in the squat rack on Thursday afternoon. Like, well, if I can make this, if I can get through this, I can get that push. I can put my hands in the right spot, drive my feet, bring the hip, bring everything with me, and I can push this guy and get my quarterback across that line so we can get that first down and keep moving the ball.
I love it, man. Let me ask you something more personal about you on a game day. So I've like seeing you, how you move and all that stuff, but are you the focused guy that's calm, cool, and collected? Or are you the energy drink wired, ready to go coach on game day?
Oh my gosh. I actually coached with one of those guys this past season, a guy by the name of Craig Mender, who was our offensive coordinator last year, who's no longer on our staff. And I don't understand how you can drink 2 white monsters and still be able to function normally. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I am not the energy drink guy. I have been the high energy guy. I've been the low energy guy. And now at being the old fart that I am, and you can see all the gray in my face and my head, I've now kind of figured out, like, I need to be the happy medium. You know, I'm not the head coach, but when it comes to special teams, I'm the head coach of special teams. Mm-hmm. So the coordinator, regardless of the phase of the game, the coordinator has to set the tone for the whole unit. So you have to bring that high energy on kickoff because you want those want the head busters to come down and make that tackle, right? We don't want them past the 15, and you have to emphasize that. But then the calmer head, like you're dealing with the kicker, I have a very different philosophy on dealing with. I have admittedly, I have spent a lot of time working in professional baseball. I have worked around a lot of great baseball players. Some have gone to be skippers in the major leagues. Matt Matheny, who was our coach here in New Orleans in 1994, former Cardinals skipper. I was in the clubhouse back in my clubby days. I was at Montgomery in AA, which was the Rays AA team in Montgomery, Alabama for the Biscuits in the Southern League. At Blake Snell in there, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, Rookie of the Year his first year. You know, I've been we around some really great coaches, especially at spring training, and seeing how they all deal with adversity, especially the pitching coaches. So my philosophy of talking to quarterbacks and kickers is the same approach as if I was taking the mound late in the game. Calm, cool. There's no need to panic. It's like, hey, this is all fixable. Small little fixes here and there. That's the guy that So I'm the guy in the middle, and that's what it is. Is that I can't be too high, I can't be too low. I can't be Kurt Signetti because there's only one Sig. I can't be the stoic like that guy. That's not me. I'm high when I need to be high. I'm low when I need to be low. You know, it's just like in a classroom. You know, every learner learns differently. So got to figure out how to deal with 50-plus personalities on a given Friday night and learn from it over time, and that's where I'm at.
I hear you. Well, let me get a special teams question before we hop into the clinic.
Sure.
At what point do you want to go for fakes? Like, would it be punt fakes? Are you a hey, let's do it whenever because I got some stuff drawn up, or is it like this is situational? Hey, it's a great part of the field. We could back them up, or the punt might go in the end zone. Let's go ahead and try a fake here. What's your kind of philosophy on that?
It is down in distance and situation.
Gotcha.
So let's take, for example, let's just a what if scenario. I'm from New Orleans, of course. Yeah, we said that. I'm a diehard Saints fan. So you know where I'm kind of going with this.
Yeah.
So think back to the Saints Super Bowl of 2009. And when Sean Payton and the staff came off the field and into the room in Miami, he already knew what he was going to do, right? And so you kind of picked up the momentum at the end of the first half. Shockey scores a touchdown with less than a minute left to go. You got a kick to Indianapolis. You really don't want to put the ball in Peyton's hands. So what are you going to do? So you have to create momentum. You have to kind of keep that momentum that you built up at the end of the second quarter, and you got to keep that going like after you've been in the room for 25 minutes, right? And so what's the best way to do that? Okay, onside kick. They hadn't seen it all season. Nobody knew it was coming except the referees because you had to tell them before the game. You have to tell them before the game, right? And so the forethought of Sean like saying, okay, we need we need to flip it because we've been practicing it this one way. Now we got to kick it the other way towards our bench instead of away from it. So right there in that situation, that was the appropriate time. Now, if the guy doesn't fumble the ball and recover, and the Saints don't recover it where they do, you're talking about a completely different game in the second half. You're taking, the ball. Peyton's got the ball in his hands, and he starts to dink and dunk like he does, and he, does what Peyton does what he did, right? So I think fakes have to come at a certain time. Field position plays a huge part in that because if you do it in the wrong place, as we've seen countless times over the years at all three levels, right? If you do it in the wrong spot, it's going to come back and bite you in the booty, right? So here's the thing. If you don't have a great punter, right, he doesn't have a big leg, and you're deep, your back is to the wall, you're deep in plus territory, right? You're inside your own 15. Is that the right type place to do it? No, in my opinion. I think when we get to the 35 and out, that's kind of like where it's questionable. It's like, okay, it's what we called at Darlington. I use this term now, possible. So at this point, when you're between the 35s, when you're between let's say the 35 and the 45, right? The 45 going in, it's like, okay, that's possible territory, because if it's fourth, in my opinion, if it's like fourth and +7, we're kicking the ball.
Yeah,
we're going to punt. Regardless of, we can have the greatest fake punt on of all time, whether you're in shield, whether you're in pro, whether you're in spread. You have the greatest fake punt like put in, but it's like, okay, our kicker's got, like, how can we flip the field? Like, where are we on the scoreboard? All these things have to come into play. I mean, you see that, you saw that this past weekend, with Denver. It's like you went forward on fourth and short. Yeah, you're in plus territory. You're on your way to try to score. If you take the 3 right where you are, because you're inside the 30, it's basically just a long extra point. Now you're talking about a different ballgame, And instead, they turn the ball over on downs right there, and they give in New England the momentum back. And at that point, it was like, okay, this is kind of over with, So it's one of those things. It's really up. And your head coach too here's the biggest thing about teams, right? Is that you can have 15 guys on the staff, but if 7 of them bought in and the other 6 or 7 of them ain't, then what are we doing? Right? So buy-in's got to be important. And the biggest thing as a special teams coordinator is that you can have the greatest fake in the world, but if you don't have faith in the personnel in front of you that's going to run it, don't ever put it in your head coach's head. Like, it's like, okay, this guy, like, looked at it all week. Should I put it in the game plan? Maybe I'll put it in the game plan. What the hell? We'll see what happens. And then, it's like, oh, coach, let's do this. And coach turns and he goes, absolutely not. Like, punt. Well, why? Well, it didn't work. It hasn't worked all week. So down and distance, time, down and distance, location on the field, score. It's like we talk about all these things, excuse me, from an offensive perspective, but we also have to put thought into it from a special teams perspective and go, okay, how is this going to affect what we do coming down, later on in the game? And it also depends too. It's like if it's like early second half and second quarter and you need a momentum play, the score is close, defensively it's a little tight, okay, well, you attempted a fake, but your defense, you've been running the ball pretty well, but you're getting stops. You've stopped them. It's pretty tight. It's like, okay, let's try it here, right? But again, it goes to like field position. Like I'm a big proponent of like field position. And I made that mistake a time or two in saying, hey, we need to run this fake right here. And coach looks at me and goes like, you sure about that? I'm like, you're right, coach. I'm sorry. I'll just go over here. So
love it, man. Well, coach, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, we'll start getting into your clinic. Down in the bottom, you click that. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna do a little commercial stuff. Guys, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Especially if you're a special teams guy, make sure you go and hit like. They're few and far between, but you always got to have them, right? And I know Coach is passionate about it, so make sure you do that for me. If you're on Spotify, make sure you rate and review us, and then comment something down in the bottom and be like, hey, I love special teams, and tell us which one is your favorite. I have to say for me, because I like punt. Like I don't like to punt, but if I had a coach of special teams, I would like to coach on punt team. I think I like it. I don't know. All right, coach. I have
can you see me? Can you see the presentation?
All right, I got you.
All right.
I'm gonna back out, and you got it.
All right. Thanks, Coach. First of all, again, Coach Tatum, thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. I wanted to do this one a little bit different because I know I've been on here with you, and I've given presentations on teams and stuff like that. And basically, I would just honestly be regurgitating some of the things I've already said, some other people have said, and there's plenty of great clinics that are out there for free or for pay. If you just go find them, and you can always find me on X. It's at the Steven Smith LA. We can always talk teams, and there's some great resources through X as well. But now that we're in hiring season, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I had brought up in this conversation about challenges and changes. Challenging yourself is really important, like putting yourself out there. And I've kind of realized that I have to thank my wife, Monica, for this thinking. A lot of times, it can be the greatest coach in the world, but you can still have that mound of self-doubt, right? And I'll talk about imposter syndrome here. Gosh, my New Orleans accent's coming out. And we'll talk about imposter syndrome here in a little bit. But we'll talk about challenges and changes. So let's talk about first what a challenge is. So according to the Cambridge English Dictionary, a challenge is the situation of being faced with something that needs great mental or physical effort in order to be done successfully and therefore tests a person's ability. This goes back to the part of our conversation here a little while ago talking about the challenge of your athletes face in the weight room. And also going to be a challenge that you as a coach face where you're going to a new staff, you're going into a new philosophy. How can you take care of that? How can you deal with that? And that's part of, that's the part of facing a challenge. So there are 12 common management challenges: a decreased performance level, being understaffed, lack of communication, poor teamwork, a pressure to perform, absence of structure, time management, inadequate support, skepticism, difficult employees, and transition from coworker to manager. Now, some of these we face every day. A lot of times, we'll come across something. You'll be in a coaches meeting. You disagree with the philosophy of the coordinator, and it's like, okay, well, you talk amongst your coworkers, your cohort in there, we're in that meeting with you, like, and side conversations that you have outside the room. But sometimes what we don't realize is that those side conversations actually lead to challenges. It leads to a decreased performance level because your lack of care starts to decrease. We're all at the high school level. A lot of us are at the high school level on small staffs. So being understaffed is very difficult because we know that as we add with not having as many coaches, we add responsibilities to ourselves. A lack of communication. You can't talk to a coworker, or you can't talk to a fellow assistant coach on the staff with you because, for whatever reason, that leads to poor teamwork. The pressure to perform. Look, we're all under the pressure to perform every Friday night. So, that's a challenge in and of itself. Absence of structure and time management, those are two things that can run concurrently, because if you have sloppiness, this is a line that I like to use from the movie Heartbreak Ridge, or sloppiness reeks of inefficiency. Well, inefficiency in this matter is a lack of time management, it's an absence of structure, and it's inadequate support. Yes, you can be on a coaching staff with the head coach, but if you don't get that structure where you're the OC, DC, STC, position coach, right? Even if you're an equipment guy and you're looking at this, or maybe you're the video guy looking at this, if you don't have that support from your coaching staff, what's going on? Skepticism. And this goes back to having those side conversations. Skepticism leads to a decreased performance level because your lack of faith in who leads you down a path of having that inadequate support that you get maybe from your other coaches that you work with. Maybe it's at home because you start to speak negatively about what goes on in your day at home. Difficult employees can also be part of that. And I think one that commonly, I think that one thing that commonly occurs amongst coaching staffs is the transition from coworker to manager. And what that means is that you go from being a coordinator to the head coach. You go from being a position coach to a coordinator. Your relationship on the staff with members of your staff is going to change because of that. And that's a challenge, because now what you're having to do is you're having to rework exactly how you get along with people, because now you go from being a subordinate to being the person in charge. And so now the jokes that you were making with your friends, at practice, standing on the practice field and not setting an example, those are things that can lead to players seeing that, and that becomes a challenge. The last place is weak workplace culture. So weak workplace culture kind of is a byproduct of all of these things. And so if you have an inadequate support and an absence of structure and lack of communication from your head coach, the standard that is set that you are trying to instill in your athletes will not be there. You can talk about it all you want, but the minute all these things happen, your standard goes bye-bye. So, because standards are what we do, it's what we accept, right? I can sit and write a whole litany of standards for what I want to do on special teams. But if I don't do them, then what good is having a standard? Okay. So a great quote here from a great man, George Patton. Accept challenges so that you may feel the exhilaration of victory. So what does that mean? That means that if you can roll with the changes and accept them, then when you win at the end of the day, you are going to feel the happiest you can be. And you really honestly can't spell challenge without change, right? So, which leads me to this. So, we hear a phrase like this all the time. Oh, well, this is the way we've always done it. The most Grace Hopper, and you can tell by her uniform that she worked for the Department of the Navy. And she once said that the most dangerous phrase in the language is we've always done it this way. If you use that as part of your daily vernacular, whatever lack of success that you've had is going to continue. You know, what's the saying that the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different or same result, something like that. We keep doing the same things over and over, and we're not getting the result that we want. Well, this is how we've always done it. Well, yeah, then you'll just continue to lose, or you'll continue to lose players. You won't be able to instill your culture. You won't be able to do what you need to do on the day-to-day basis in order to put your athletes and really more so yourself in the most in the best position possible. So this leads to adaptation. So failures and adaptation. Okay, let's talk about this. Kodak, Xerox, Blockbuster, and Sears. What do these four companies have in common? Their failure to adapt. Kodak died because it had a chance to go lead the digital revolution in photography and didn't. Blockbuster could have bought Netflix. And if you didn't know that, now you know. Blockbuster could have been Netflix. They chose Wayne Huizenga, who was the CEO, the head of the founder of Blockbuster at the time, did not see the value in running video like that. And then now look at it. Sears couldn't adapt to the online shopping revolution because they were still store-based and catalog-based. And they thought that nobody's going to go and shop online. Well, Amazon beat them to it, and now Sears doesn't exist. Xerox. Well, Xerox could have moved into printers instead of just because everybody uses a home printer now. They could have easily have morphed their business from copying machines to printers, but they chose not to do that. So these companies fight change, and there's 7 reasons why that we fight change. The fear of the unknown, fear of making the change transition successful, unclear benefits both personally and for the organization, and a lack of confidence that the change will work. So the fear of the unknown. Many employees will only accept change as positive if the current situation is completely untenable and markedly worse than the prospect of trying something new, different, or unknown. So when you're going to do something different, in my case, I went from coaching, like transitioning roles on the field in 2012, like I said earlier when I was in Knoxville, or in 2011, I got a small taste of it, but not the whole plate. In 2012, I had the plate put in front of me, and I was really scared. And we'll talk about, and again, this is where imposter syndrome comes in, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The fear of making the change transition successful. What will employees be asked to do differently? What will they be able to adapt favorably to the new boss, the new responsibilities, the new strategic direction, the new organizational structure, or the new skills required? So every time that we change staffs, or if we survive a head coaching change, we go through this fear of making that transition successful. Okay? We all get new responsibilities. Hey, coaches come and go. So the head coach wants to shuffle around different jobs to different people. He needs to delegate. those to you, and you're not really sure, like, okay, do I really want to do this or not? Well, yeah, you're gonna have to if you want to coach, right? So unclear benefits for both personally and for organization. I'm sorry, man. If the vision for change, or the business case for change at the company level is not spelled out in a compelling way, or if the benefits to the individual are not persuasive, you can bet that change is resisted from the beginning. So, philosophical changes. You've been a spread team. The personnel changes. Now you want to go to more of a ground and pound, run-based offense. But we've been throwing the ball, but you don't have the quarterback for it. You don't have the wide receivers for it. Well, if you sit in that meeting with your head coach and he says, hey, we're going to make this change, you need to do this. Well, is that you're like, okay, yeah, sure. But in the back of your mind, you're like, well, I'm not really sure about this, but I'll just do it anyway. Well, then that little voice of doubt starts creeping in, right? And when you have that voice of doubt creeping in, that's where the resistance begins instead of being open-minded. So the last one on this particular slide is a lack of confidence that the change will work. If the employees doubt that the leadership is fully committed to the change or capable of a successful change, there will be resistance. The plan for change must be equal to the challenge of what you are trying to accomplish. Okay? So you have to be all in, right? You have to be 100% bought in. So for me as a special teams coordinator at Riverdale, if the other coaches on the staff don't work with me and not bought into me, not buying into what I'm doing from a philosophical perspective on special teams, that's going to be kind of difficult. So if I am understanding that my head coach is not fully on board with what I'm doing, then that's going to be really difficult. So, but if I remove the fear of the unknown, if I make my transition successful, if I understand both all the benefits for me personally and professionally, and if I have the confidence that everything will work, then that resistance to change is a little bit lessened. So now we go into the last three here, which is an unwilling to give up the tried and true, disenchantment with too much change, and feeling sidelined and uninformed. Okay. Willingness to give up the tried and true. Well, we've always done it this way, so that's why we're going to keep doing it. If you are unwilling to mold with the times, perfect example, wing T to an RPO-based offense. If you've been coaching in a wing T, but now you have some guys up front, you have a really fast, really agile running back, and a quarterback that can throw and also run and read defenses. Doesn't matter what level. But you're like, I don't know. We've always done it this way, so we're just going to keep doing it. And then you go in week 1, week 2, week 3, and you see that you're not getting the offensive movement that you want because everybody knows what's coming, right? They have to stop you, but at the same time, it's there's some conversity, I guess would be the word. I don't know if that's a real word or not, but there's some converseness there where you have to see the other side of the coin and go, okay, well, if this isn't working, maybe we should change, but I'm not sure, right? So disenchantment with too much change. Okay, so you're on a coaching staff again that you've changed offensive philosophies, and now you've gone from RPO to a spread, but it's like, okay, well, we're going to do all of this. And you kind of start looking at each other, and it kind of goes back to what I talked about previously, where the buy-in has to occur. And you're like, oh, I'm not really sure. It's like, no, this is, this isn't really cool. I don't really like this. And that's what kind of leads to, being unhappy in the workplace and then feeling sidelined and uninformed. So employees who were not actively involved in discussions prior to the change are apt to feel neglected as if they have no voice in the future of the organization. So head coach decides to make a change in philosophy, whether it's offense, defense, special teams. You as the coordinator You come in the office one day, the head coach hands you a packet and goes, "Here, this is your new offense." Okay. When we're going to talk about this, we're not going to talk about this. This is what I want to do. Yeah, it is. Sometimes it's a dictatorship, but sometimes you get that feeling of like, well, I really wasn't involved in the discussion. To illustrate another example, staff meeting, and the coordinator has decided to do something different. He wants something blocked up differently. And it's like, okay, but I'm the offensive line coach. Shouldn't you have talked to me? He's like, no, this is what I want done. Okay, well, you still weren't actively involved in the discussion. And so you're not really happy about it, but you're going to go with it anyway. Right. And so that's what kind of, and it's like, well, I'll just keep going because for the sake of going. Well, that's where feeling sidelined and uninformed, comes in. So being able to be flexible, be changeable, being okay with change, and then communicating with your coaching staff or your coworkers, however you want to put it, about changes that are being made. So all of these things will help make changes. So change is most difficult at the beginning. It's messiest in the middle, but it's the best at the end. And we see that all the time in the National Football League with with head coaching changes. I mean, there's 10, 11 of them this season, and going into the 2026 cycle. So we know it's difficult at the start. Getting something new is definitely not easy. But in the middle, that's where it starts to kind of fix itself, because then you start to learn and adapt. And now you're kind of adapting with those changes. And at the end, when you see the result on Friday, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning, Thursday night, whenever it is for you, whether it's high school JV, freshman, A, B, C team, doesn't matter, right? When we see those results at the end, you could have lost the game, but you made gains, just like being in the weight room. It's like, hey, at the beginning, it's really hard to pick that bar up. And then 4 months down the road, you see the kids start to get better. And at the end, when we start to max out, you see him get past his max at his highest level. That's where you start to see that it's all that work is paid off. So I'm talking about a guy here that I really have a lot of respect for, is Jocko Willink. He talks about accountability. So if you don't know who Jocko Willink is, he and his business partner, they have a company called Echelon Front. They talk to companies about leadership. Jocko himself was a SEAL team leader. He fought in the Battle of Ramadi. He had been in and out of the sandbox his entire career as a leader in SEAL teams. He has 3 or 4 different books. He's got a line of protein products. He does the whole thing. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. The guy is a guy. Okay. So accountability in the teams in SEAL teams is really important. So he said this about accountability. It's an important tool that leaders must utilize. However, it should not be the only primary tool. It must be balanced with other leadership tools, such as making sure that people understand why, empowering subordinates, and trusting that they will do the right thing without direct oversight because they fully understand the importance of doing so. This is where communication comes in when we talk about change. If you decide to make a change and you just go ahead and arbitrarily do it without telling your guys, it's probably going to be difficult to be accountable. And then when that accountability torch gets passed to you, it's going to be like, well, why was it like this? Well, the only person you can blame is yourself, because you didn't ask for help. You didn't get any help. You just decided to make the change for making the change's sake. Okay. So one of the things that I had to take this slide out. And one of the last thing on Jocko, and I'll get going here. So it talks about the word good. We've heard this over and over again. If you follow any level of college, if you follow college sports, you've heard different colleges, different teams. The University of Texas last year, their baseball team adapted this. A couple of football teams, it's just the word good. So if things go bad, good. You didn't get the right equipment that you asked for. You asked your administration if you can get new uniforms. No. He said no. Good. We'll make do with what we got, and we'll make it better. You know, you worked on something in practice, but it didn't work in a game. Good. Now you know what to fix. So get going. So if something goes bad, whether it's among the staff, whether it's on the field, weight room, even at home, it's like, okay, it didn't work. Good. Because now I can adapt. I can change. And I can make it better. So the top 10 work ethics: attendance, character, teamwork, appearance, attitude, productivity, organizational skills, communication, cooperation, and respect. These 10 things are key components to how we as coaches need to deal with not just ourselves, but with our athletes as well. We need to be there every day. We need to be productive. We can't waste people's time. We have to talk. We have to work with other people. We have to respect other people's opinions and respect them as people, not just as a coworker or an athlete, but as people. Attitude, how you look. If you're sloppy, we've always heard that adage, it's like dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have. Okay? So if your appearance is sloppy, then, you know, maybe that leads into other things. Now, look, I'm not saying that, you know, hey, look, we in today's day and age, you know, we're all kind of a little bit unkempt here, you know, here and there. You know, facial hair is a little bit more acceptable nowadays, but, you know, maybe the way you drive, it's really kind of up to you. Like, how do you want to enforce that? That's kind of like part of your ethics, right? Attendance, you got to be there every day, right? It's important. Be there every day. Cooperate, respect others, okay? And if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you, okay? So that's where good comes in, because everything is a challenge. It's like, okay, well, this didn't happen. Good. So now how do you fix it? And that's what makes the change in you possible. Okay, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. We're all in this business, we're all guilty of it. Okay. So Kobe once said that I have self-doubt, I have insecurity, I have a fear of failure. I have nights when I show up at the arena and I'm like, my back hurts, my feet hurt, my knees hurt. I don't have it. I just want to chill. We all have self-doubt. You don't deny it, but you also don't capitulate to it. You embrace it. So if it's a belief that you don't deserve the achievements that you have, you think, sometimes we think that we're smarter, that we're not as smart as others are, and are often well accomplished. So I've heard Mike Lombardi, who's now the GM at North Carolina, at the University of North Carolina with Bill Belichick. I've heard him talk about imposter syndrome when he used to host his podcast, The GM Shuffle. Look, you may not think that you are as smart as other people, but you are. You just contribute in different ways, right? And you don't believe that you deserve what you get. And I'm going to cuss here for a second. That's a little bullshit. Because everything that you get, all the work that you put in using those 10 work ethics and the seven phases of challenges and change, putting all that together, you deserve everything that you get. You deserve your flowers. Now, I'm not saying you're entitled to them. I'm just saying that you're deserving of it because your work speaks of that. So causes of imposter syndrome are struggles with perfectionism and competitive environments. Like sometimes what winds up happening is that we try to find the perfect play. We try to find the perfect route. There ain't no such thing as perfect. Okay? So once you realize that, you kind of can get over it. And then it happens, especially like in our environment, it's in competitive environments. 25 to 30%, 70% of adults, 25 to 30% of high achievers, and 70% adults suffer from this every day. So how do we make it better? You get better every day or you get worse. You be results oriented and focus on the end result. You work on weaknesses and turn them into strengths. Well, that didn't happen. Good. Now I know how to get better. Learn from others who had success. I'm not as good as them. Yes, you are. You're just as good as them. Show us. Practice what you learn. Plan for victory and learn from defeat. Good. Be ambitious and set your goals high. Believe in yourself and your team. Have a strong work ethic. And that's it for me. I think if we do all of these things, that if we do all of these things on a daily basis, if we believe in ourselves and have a faith and a belief in the people that you work with, the people you work for, the kids that you coach, doesn't matter what sport. It could be at the park. It could be at the Y. But if you don't have the faith and ability, and look, all of these things can lead to you can use this. You don't have to just use it on the field in the gym. You can use it in the classroom too. Because as a teacher, you got to have faith in those kids. Like, yeah, I may not be given the greatest lesson, but you know what? Damn it, I'm going to get this done. These kids are going to learn this. And if they don't, good. We'll figure out ways to have them learn. You can take it, all this stuff you can take into a classroom. Everything that we do as coaches on the field, in the gym every day, we can take those lessons and we can apply those to the classroom because after all, we're all teachers. And the fields and the courts, the gyms, that's our classroom. So it's an extension of what we do as teachers. So
I love it, man. Hey, I was pumped up and ready to roll, man. Like, not even just blowing smoke. Like I relate to a lot of the things you were talking about. I've talked to other coaches that have gone through some things, and at the end of the day, what is your why? Hold on to it, and just know, hey, am I here trying to do some good in the world? Am I enjoying my time? Good. Let's rock and roll. So.
That's the biggest thing, Ian, man. It's like if you're not having fun doing what you do, like to be completely transparent, the job I had before transitioning back into a classroom in October, I had it for 3 years. I was working in public recreation in Jefferson Parish. I was miserable as hell. I was not happy. And that bled in my job performance. And whose fault is that? It's not the jobs. It's not my wife's or my kids. It's mine because I was unhappy where I was. If you're not happy where you are, right, then you can get fulfillment in any way. You know, watching gains in the weight room, you know, a freshman running back getting 5 yards on the play that you never thought would work with him, right? These little things, the little victories add up to the win at the end of the day, right? And so it's the same thing in the classroom. You see kids improve, like even if it's just like 2% improvement, right?
Yeah.
So I'll end with this. So Rocky Hager, who was my head coach at Northeastern University for 3 years in Boston, and I love Rocky. He's got 4 national championships as head coach at North Dakota State. He screamed this to us every day. That 1%, we're working for 1% improvement every day. You think about this for a second. A football season lasts for 4 months. It's at least 120 days. If you improve 1% over those 120 days, you have changed a whole lot of things. It's 120% improvement from day 1 to day 120. So if we think like that as teachers in the classroom, we usually get about 180 days, 183 days in the classroom. So if you have kids who improve by just 1% over 20% of that time, right? That's a gain. That's a positive thing. Hey, he wasn't able to read, but now he is. He couldn't block down on this play or kick out. Now he can. You know, he wasn't able to catch the ball 3 months ago. Now look at him. He's gone for 100 yards in a game last night. You know, we can make those small improvements and be happy in those small improvements and look at that into ourselves and go, hey, you know what? I'm good enough to do this shit. Then that's the most important thing.
Yeah. It's process over results.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it, Coach. Well, guys, if you guys want to follow Coach, man, it's the Steve Smith LA on Twitter. Make sure you go and hit him up, man, and give him a follow. And I'm sure if anybody wants to know any more details, hey man, down kick rap, love it, man. Shout
Dome,
out,
baby.
Dome.
Dome Duval. Sorry, I had to get that in.
There you go. Yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch with him on anything he was just talking about, man, please do so. But brother, I appreciate you. Stay on. I will talk to you for a second after this outro. But I appreciate you a lot.
Hey, thanks, Coach T. I appreciate you, and good luck to everybody this upcoming season. And we'll see you real soon.
Yeah, man. Guys, Stephen Smith, that's my guy. Full of energy, man. Love this talk. I think everybody can take something away from that. We all fall into some of those categories of where I thought and done some of those things. And hey, man, it's okay. Let's move forward and let's get better. So, again, thank you to him. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, man. Thank you to Coach's Share, First Playbook, and Dome Hat Wear, man. They're aces in my book. And then make sure you rate us on Spotify. But until the next video, I am Coach Ian Tatum. Make sure you're coaching for the kids. Live your purpose. And let's score some points in the defense. See y'all in the next video.